Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Curious Realms continuing coverage of MUFON Symposium 2023 here in Covington, Kentucky. We have with us in this segment Linda Zimmerman. She is a UFO, UAP researcher. She has numerous books, including books on Civil War, bad science, and Hudson Valley UFOs, the best evidence. She's here presenting on animal reactions to UFOs. It's a remarkable topic because not many people realize that animals have incredible reactions to UFOs, kind of like they do with natural phenomena whenever earthquakes, things like that are happening. So how did you come into this realm of research, Linda?
Well, as I was interviewing people and hundreds of people in the Hudson Valley, so many times the story would start with, my dogs were barking like crazy, so I went outside to see what it was and saw the UFO, or the horses, the cattle. And it started as a joke. I was giving a lecture and I said, if it wasn't for animals alerting people, we'd miss half these sightings.
Sure.
And it was kind of like, the Newton apple falling on my head. Wait a minute, what does that mean? So I jumped both feet into that rabbit hole, so to speak.
Wow. and I guess it was UFO research that you were in before you started the
Correct.
Animal research. Like you were saying, it was very much the fact of through your UFO research, you found that people were being alerted to the presence of something by their animals. How does the animal-human relationship play into encounters? When it comes to encounters, when it comes to, familiarity with encounters?
Well, in a sense, they're parallel many times, people's reactions, but often there isn't. I'm reminded of a case of this big German shepherd named Hans, very protective, and this woman and her friend are walking the dog. They see a dumbbell-shaped UFO over a playground, and they're kind of fascinated by it, but Big Hans is whimpering, trying to dig a hole in the ground to hide in. He's terrified, and they realized maybe we shouldn't get closer to this. If Hans is hysterical, which they have never seen,
wow,
we need to get out of here. So in that regard, I think we can take warnings from animals that maybe running up to something like that isn't the smartest thing.
Sure. And it's interesting the fact that, they listened to their animal before they followed their own instinct to go up and be curious about it. And there are numerous situations where people get very curious about things. I mean, Travis Walton is the first one that pops to mind. Where
There's a good
his friends are like, hey, stop, man.
If only Travis had a dog with him.
And the rabbit holes that led down in their life.
Right.
Now, how frequently is it that, have you ever had any encounters where, I guess, animals are taken and brought back or are abducted with their owners?
There are cases where animals are taken and never brought back. Some dogs, there's a case where a bull was taken right out of a paddock in New Zealand. And they said the only way it could have gone was to be lifted. And they did see a UFO. In fact, this UFO, there was a ranch hand riding a horse, and he had his herding dogs. You know how energetic they are. He said all of a sudden all his dogs froze, and the horse froze, and then he realized he couldn't move either. They were all paralyzed for the duration that this craft was in the area, and then the craft took off and they could move again. And it wasn't for a few days before they realized the bull was missing, and it occurred at that same time. So I think they didn't see the bull being lifted, but I think we can probably put two and two together there.
Yeah. That's, bulls don't have thumbs to open gates to let
No.
themselves out.
No, and as the rancher said, there were so many cows to keep him happy. There's no way that bull would have left on his own, even if he could.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also the fact of when you're talking cattlemen, things like that. I mean, we heard David Paulides last night talking about the cases of elk disappearing, things like that in the Northwest America, Montana region, things like that. But when it comes to cattle, animals like that is somebody's living. They ain't hurting a cow on purpose. They ain't losing a cow on purpose.
Exactly.
Especially a bull that's there to help you breed more cows.
Right.
That is more than a prized animal.
Yes.
So now, amongst these cases, how frequently have you seen the fact of animals being changed? We hear a lot on this show from human experiencers and even folks like Sev Talk, Kathleen Martin from the Experiencer Resource Team, about not only about how lives are changed after an experience, but how people are physically changed. Sometimes, like the case they were talking about last night, where tuberculosis scars disappear. Things like that. Have you seen any cases where animals come back with similar qualities?
Well, certainly their behavior changes. Cows give less milk. Sometimes they stop giving milk.
Wow.
There's an unfortunate goat in France who, as they said, stopped doing the male goat. They slaughtered the goat eventually because he couldn't.
That's what you do when a goat hits that point. But just dogs who will hide under the bed for days or weeks. There was a case near where I live in New York where it was a Rottweiler German Shepherd Doberman mix. You can't get much more aggressive than that. Yeah.
And this UFO was hovering so close over the top of the house, they thought it was actually going to crush the house. Dog was terrified. For a year, the dog would not go out in the backyard alone. And this was the
That's a big dog.
Alpha male, guard dog, would not step foot outside unless somebody was with him. So, and birds they stop singing. Cows and sheep don't want to stay in the paddock anymore. There's a residual, I think, effect that's left, and these animals have PTSD, essentially.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember Terry Lovelace, whenever he came on the show, gave an example of a situation that happens with many, many experiencers, especially whenever they live out in the woods or are out in the woods, where nature ceases. Owls stop hooting that were hooting. Crickets stop singing. Everything just goes silent, like you're talking about. Like the birds stop singing. Dogs stop barking sometimes when they're an alert dog. How frequently do you hear of that situation where basically life around you stops?
Yes, those are some of the most chilling, I think.
Yeah, I've got goosebumps right now just thinking about it.
I think one of the most dramatic is from Brazil, Rio Pardo of Brazil. 3 businessmen were crocodile hunting at night, and they said, they say this infernal din was how they described of the jungle at night. Everything makes noise. A circular UFO came within 100 feet, dead silent. Absolutely everything stopped. Every bird, every insect. And one of the men was in the woods. He couldn't see the UFO. All he knew was that everything around him went silent, and he was terrified because what just happened?
Yeah. What made the whole forest go silent randomly?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but certainly, people have said during a sighting, whatever birds stop, just everything goes quiet.
And interestingly enough, I just posted an article all of a couple weeks ago talking about using electrostatic fields for soundproofing.
Huh. Okay.
And I was like, well, that's pretty much what we're talking about with any UFO, and that would explain the utter silence.
So you're shielded from it.
Yeah, and the fact of the high electrostatic field would basically stop all of that sound from the outside coming into the field.
Wow, I'm so glad I'm talking to you to learn
so
that.
just something to dig into with some of this, because it's interesting to see a lot of the technology that is being released right now as this world of disclosure comes upon us. That's one of the things I've said regularly on the show is like, keep your eyes out in the tech world right now. Because, yes, there has been apparently a large project of reverse engineering, and only way you get that money back is for it to either hit a battlefield or a shelf, one of the two. Now, when it comes to animals and UFO experiences, how frequently have you seen the case of, I guess, repeat experiences? Because frequently it's the case with human experiencers that once they've experienced, they experience numerous times after, especially if it's been a close encounter experience where they have been taken or they have had physical presence. Have you seen the same thing with animals?
For the owners who are having repeat experiences, the animals will, but a lot of the cases I've dealt with, it's a one-off, which doesn't mean it hasn't happened again, because there's not a lot of information on this out there. And unless I find the witnesses to speak to in person, you'll get these, little bits and pieces. But clearly for the poor animals who are part of somebody who maybe is having encounters, their immediate reaction, run and hide. Take off.
Well, and you have to consider it, especially most of the time whenever you have a pet. Doesn't matter what the pet is. There is a bond between owner and pet, and when you're going through PTSD, when you're going through a situation, they frequently want to be there to help you. Especially dogs, cats, things like that. That's one of the many reasons they are therapy animals. But when they're going through the same experience you have, that's got to be hard for the little critter, and it's got to be hard for the owner too. They're going through their own situation, much less being able to either recognize the fact that this has statically changed their animal the same way it's changed them. Right.
And hopefully they have sympathy or empathy for the animal. For the most part, I think people do. But it's difficult for them. It adds to their own stress because you're my guard dog. You're supposed to be protecting me from this.
Yeah, I got you to alert.
Right. You're under the bed.
We have this arrangement. If I give you food, you alert me to danger.
Right.
That's thousands of years of arrangement that has been just kind of cut in half.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And what has been the most impactful case that you've come across, the one that sticks with you the most and I guess reaches down and really pulls you by the gut?
Oh, yeah. There was a case in Uruguay where this guard dog on a ranch, Topo the guard dog, a craft came over the ranch. It was a dairy farm. The dairy cattle are going crazy. The generator goes out because obviously there's electrostatic fields. The owner is feeling tingling. He's getting burns. He puts his arm up to block his eyes. He's getting burns. Topo goes running towards the craft. He's the only animal he's going to defend to the death, and unfortunately it was. Within 15 feet of the craft, he suddenly stops, sits down, throws his head back, and starts howling. Just howling and howling. The craft takes off. He stops howling, but he stops eating. He gets very lethargic. 3 days later, he goes back to the spot and lays down and dies. And they do an autopsy on him. And they said his organs had been so horribly internally heated, and the body fat on the inside had melted and gone through his skin.
Wow.
So poor Topo, he must have been in agony. He was paralyzed
Poor
in
thing.
spot. And was it intentional or was it a byproduct? They
Yeah.
had to know.
Yeah.
How can you not know you're frying this poor dog from the inside out?
Yeah.
And that I get choked up. I think of this
Yeah.
poor dog. He's trying to protect his owner and his property, and it cost him his life.
Well, and that really brings to heart the entire concept of this symposium, Friend or Foe 2.0. When it was on last year, the friend or foe concept was friend or foe in the media. How has the media treated the UFO UAP topic? Have they been our friend or foe?
Right.
Have they said friend or foe as far as UFO UAP? And right now, the topic of friend or foe is how it is being treated by the government. And even the speech by David Politas last night about missing 411 and the animals being watched, the food supply being watched, things like that. Friend or foe?
Yeah.
Friend or foe?
Right.
And even this situation, I guess if you're an intergalactic animal lover, like you said, you can't know that your technology isn't going to do that. You can't not realize it's happening.
Exactly.
So, yeah, friend or foe. And the dog obviously did not think friend
No.
by his actions.
No. Whatever was alerting him, he saw a danger that he needed to go into protect mode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is the one that always chokes me up. But even the animals who are just hurt as a result or traumatized,
Yeah.
they don't understand what's going on. Not that we understand what's going on,
Yeah.
but for them, you can imagine their whole world is suddenly turned upside down.
Yeah.
And, so negligence at the very least and malice, I think we're leaning in the malice category.
Well, and I was going to ask a follow-up question. What's been the most redeeming story that you've heard out of all of these cases researching animals and UFO encounters?
That I have not looked at it that. I don't know that I've seen a redeeming case. There is a couple of cases where rectangular craft, which for some reason seem a little different, animals seem drawn to it, which may be good or bad. I don't know why they're being
like in a playful drawn way or in a defensive drawn way.
No, yeah, more in a I need to get close to this.
Yeah, like chasing a car.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Only it doesn't have wheels and it's hovering.
Yeah. But that
Right.
instinct to chase,
Yeah.
to go
There's
after
a
that.
handful of cases where the animals seem, but yet there was a case in Florida where the person felt euphoric. The animals, a cat and a dog, they were drawn towards this craft. They didn't reach it, which is probably a good thing, because in the ensuing days, the woman started feeling sick, nausea, hair falling out, radiation.
Yeah, very
signs.
Cash Landrum.
There you go. So was this vehicle trying to draw them to it for nefarious reasons, or was it something innocent, but yet had they gotten closer?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know that I could say there is a redeeming case where, they've done great things for this dog or cat.
Yeah, and that's just it. Once again, there are numerous cases with humans where they've been randomly healed of something, or they even come back with the ability to help heal people.
Exactly.
And that's what I was curious about. Were there cases like that with animals where, I mean, of course, their life has changed. On occasion, the physiology has changed to the worst.
Right. But that's an excellent point, something I hadn't considered. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I don't see... I will have to look
Yeah.
deeper into, did it cure...
Yeah, because there's got to be a good one.
I would hope.
There's got to be a good one. And, you morbidly laugh about it. But, yeah, we have to try to see if there's any good that comes of it. Even we talk about it regularly with Sev Talk, about the Experiencer Resource Team, and about how many people view their experience through the filter of life that they are living, be it addiction, abuse, things like that. And then as they get better in life, they view their encounter through a different lens and through a different filter, and realize that it was not the abusive experience that they believed it was. Have you seen that in cases with involving animals and human contact as well?
I've seen it with humans, but, given the nature of animals and trying to communicate, I haven't seen where they've viewed it better. But it reminds me of a case of a man who was having abduction experiences from a very young age, which were horrifying. But now that he's old, now he's on the other side of life, an older man, he looks at it as he believes he was healed during these sessions. And he said to me, it's like when you take a sick puppy to the vet. He said they're terrified. They don't know what you're doing to them, but it's for their own
good.
Bingo.
It's for their own good.
So that's the way he has now come to look at that experience.
And that's a beautiful cathartic way to look at it, absolutely, especially if it's something that changed your life for the better and gave you a new open-minded, open-hearted way to view the world.
Right.
In your vast realm of experience investigating beyond the animal UFO connection, just UFO cases in general, Linda, friend or foe? Which camp would you fall in?
I would tend to be in the faux camp. Even when people seem to be helped by it and may get some new abilities, you're taken against your will. Things are done without your consent. That's kidnapping and assault.
Yeah. Yes.
So, even if they're trying to do the right thing, they have really bad bedside manner.
Yeah. We got to work on the approach.
Yes. So I would have to go. Some things are clearly faux. Some things I think are clearly friend. But when you look at the entirety of it, from the people I've spoken to, it's in the negative. It's in the faux category.
Well, and that's what I explain on the show regularly. Typically at this point is when I pointed all my guest books on the wall behind me. And out of all these books, it's pretty rare that it starts off with a song. Most of the stories start off like a Disney movie.
Yes.
It's not a good first 5 minutes.
Right.
For somebody involved, it is not a good first 5 minutes of the movie. The story changes as it goes along. Characters evolve.
Right.
But that first 5 minutes is typically pretty traumatic.
Yes.
And like you're saying, that lands it pretty well in the faux category when it is a traumatic experience to begin with. So, Linda, let everybody know where they can go to find your work, where they can go to, of course, other than our store, we'll be adding all of your books to our online store as well, but let them know where they can follow you and catch up with your work.
If you're interested in my UFO books, they're all on Amazon. And I have a podcast. It's called UFO Headquarters.
Great.
It's on Hudson River Radio, but, every podcast platform known to mankind. So you can listen to it there. You can get in touch with me if you have cases. I'd love to hear if people have animal reaction stories. So I'm out there. I'm on Facebook. I have Hudson Valley UFOs Facebook. I have an Animal Reactions Facebook page. So I can only do what I do when witnesses are willing to speak to me.
That's right.
So I'm
That's
very
right.
grateful for the community we have who is willing to share.
Absolutely. That is the beautiful thing about right now at this point in humanity. We are hitting a huge catharsis with sharing and opening up and the hearings, everything going on. So it's absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for the time. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I can't wait to hear you speak and hear your
great.
presentation. While you are online, checking out everything from Linda Zimmerman, everybody, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousSrealm.com is the website. That's where you can like, subscribe, share. That is where you can submit your story. CuriousRealm.com/story is our experiencer page. If you have had a experience with UFOs, aliens, if you've had an encounter with cryptids or Bigfoot, feel free to give us your experience. You can leave your evidence, videos, audio. We'll use it on the show and present your evidence to our experts and see if we can get you some answers. Stay tuned through these commercial breaks. We will be right back with our continuing coverage of MUFON Symposium 2023 right here in Covington, Kentucky, right after this.